Now join palm and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. I was going to touch on something briefly just before we go into meditation. I think it's important, especially if you're new, maybe to Buddhism or Buddhist temples, to understand that just because people are in this room doesn't mean they see the world the way you do. Right? And this is a reminder for those who maybe, haven't heard this in a while, or maybe first time for many of you, that we might think that if we go to meditation or we go to a Buddhist class or you go to your yoga, whatever, that means something about those people there. I know a lot of you in this room, and everybody's views are so different. But what makes coming together and looking at Buddhist teachings and sitting together in a Sangha, in a community, is to just have that endless mutual love and respect for every person in the room that may have views completely different from yours. The goal, if there is one, and I know I always talk about there not being goals in Buddhist practice, but I should say the goal is not to get everybody to have the same views of the world. It's not going to happen. But to me, the important part of Sangha and community, and even when you look at the time of the Buddha, was to create an environment where people felt comfortable, they felt safe, they felt cared for, and they were able to just be who they were. So, keep that in mind when you are around Buddhist communities, that it's important to just be who you are, have the views that you have. And my suggestion is to use this practice not to change the world or to change anything outside of you, but to work on the acceptance of the world around you, to work on your interactions with the world around you, and see how that impacts your local, small circle of friends, family, communities. See what kind of impact that can have. Because it's really easy to kind of get lost in this, what I call the facade or illusion of Buddhism, that, one of the things I hear very often when I say, what brings people here? And somebody will say, well, I'm here to be around like-minded people. And I always laugh and I say, well, I know most of you, but trust me, none of you are alike. Right? And that's not the point. I really want to kind of drive that home, at least right now, that the point is not for all of us to be alike. Because we're not. We're so unique and different in our own way, and that's beautiful. Keep that. But try to just learn to respect and appreciate everybody else who has their own unique, different views of the world. Because a lot of the anger and hatred and disgust and these kind of heavy emotions that we might carry from things that go on in the world, that feeling of anger and hatred and disgust doesn't lead to a pleasant day. So just thought I'd start with that before we begin the meditation practice. So a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. All right, don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is this not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. It's important to always sit as if you've never sat before. So each time you sit, it's like it's the very first time you're ever sitting. Everything starts now. Everything begins now. Whatever your day was is done. Whatever you're carrying with you is done. Just sit. All right, posture. You just want to be comfortable. If you're on the cushions, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten, shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. I'll suggest closing the eyes if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. I will guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, don't expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Going throughout the practice, you'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions. Simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Gently guide the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where is your mind? Lost in thought? Release that thought. Return to breath. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. With the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go. no one else to be. Everything beautiful, just as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, it's quiet, calm, still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than anyone in this room, but began to understand why he suffered. Why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for every one of us in this room, regardless of where we come from or what we believe in or where we think we're going, our whole life is filled with things that happen. We react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's what we get every day. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It is not an escape from reality. It is direct perception into the present moment. And you might not like that present moment. And this practice is learning to be okay with things as they are. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. Sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and every other person you encounter, every moment of your life. That's why it's so simple. You just have to go be nice to each other. This is not easy. The world doesn't do what we want it to, hardly ever. We don't meditate to be good at meditation. We do this practice so when we engage in the world outside of here, we bring a sense of calmness, of stillness, of clarity, of kindness, compassion into our lives. The one thing that is pretty consistent when you bring groups together like this is, at least in this setting, most people around here are pretty nice to each other. Now, this same group of people could be 5 blocks down the road sitting at a restaurant bar, and your actions might be a little bit different. Neither one of those places, right or wrong, or good or bad. But we begin to explore and look at what are the intentions behind why we go to places. So while you can be kind to, 60 people sitting in this room right now, if the same 60 people are down the street, bumping into you, cutting you off in traffic, taking too long in the grocery store, can you be kind to them there? These are those people. And so community, Sangha, is a place where you come together to learn to be kind to each other, knowing that you all have different views and different ways of seeing the world. To begin to practice what it's like to have that same level of kindness and understanding and compassion with everybody else you encounter. The world out there didn't finish their meditation. They don't really care that you finished yours. And it's going 1,000 miles an hour, and you very quickly get wrapped up into it. And so this is a moment to just pause, to reflect on what it's like to just sit and breathe. To not have to build anything, create anything, be anything, or anyone, but just to be. When so much of our day is trying to figure out who or how we should be, what we should do, where we should go. So much of our lives is built around that. How do we fit in? How does this work? How does that work? We all have roles. We have some sort of structure in our lives, maybe. Some sort of responsibility, obligations, within friendships, within family, within jobs. And so we're often playing some sort of role. And we begin to define ourselves by that role. And then we get lost thinking that that's who we are. And this is an opportunity to come back to just sitting. At this moment, I am just sitting. At this moment, I am just breathing. That's it. No names, no labels, no judgments, no critiques, no obligations, no responsibilities. And the more you practice that, the easier it becomes to carry that into all of those other roles and obligations and responsibilities you have. Because they're not going away. Right? So we work on bringing this into every other thing in our lives. But to the point where every other thing in our lives doesn't consume us, it doesn't define us. We learn to just be present with it. So I'd rather just stop there, and as usual, I prefer to just respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address, and we'll go from there. Yes, sir.
This is not particularly related, but the sun's coming through the window and shining on the blue behind you. They're tossing. I just wanted you to turn around.
Nice.
It looks really good.
Thanks, dude. Oh, yeah. I'm actually surprised I'm not stopping and ignoring you all for a moment and taking a photo, which I still may do. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. You know, it's just kind of stop and appreciate all the things throughout our day, you know? It's really important. Thanks, Ed. Other thoughts, questions, observations? Yes.
So today was a very a difficult day for me. Someone that I used to live with moved out. Someone I got very close to.
I remember.
Oh, it's not the same person. My question is, how do you?
Sorry,
That's okay.
couldn't resist.
How do you? I'm just trying to find a healthy way of letting go of people, and
Yeah.
it's just hard. You know?
So you mean what I told you last week or the week before hasn't worked yet?
Like it's moved away, right?
Yeah. So,
They moved away now, so.
but not the person you were trying to get away from.
Oh, I guess. Yeah, it was actually. Yeah.
So that person moved out.
Yeah.
And here you are still asking about that. So that person moved out.
Yes.
You've carried them with you all the way here, all the way tonight, probably for the 20 minutes that we were sitting in meditation, at least maybe 18 of the 20. And immediately it was like, how do I stop carrying this person with me? Just set it down. I know I'm not a fan at all. The expression "let it go" usually I'm just not a fan of that. You know, something's bothering you and someone tells you just let it go, it usually just makes you more angry. You know, I mean, everybody's different how they respond to things. But to me, instead of focusing on how do I set this down or how do I move on or how do I let them go, start putting some time and attention. My suggestion is to begin to put some time and attention into everything that you are missing, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, while you are so wrapped up and consumed on this other person in your life. I mean, this could have been, and I'm making things up as I always do, but this could have been a really beautiful 20 minutes of just sitting quietly. Let me back up. Is it safe to say that you spent about 18 to 20 minutes thinking about that person?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then this example works even better. You just had 18 minutes to sit here and just enjoy sitting here, right? To feel the bit of wind going through the window, to look at the sunlight hitting the Buddha, right? To listen to your breath, to appreciate being alive, to find beauty in sitting around a bunch of other crazy people who are all dealing with your madness, no offense, folks, right? But instead, you chose what you chose. So you're missing out. People have impacts in our lives. They always will. And somewhere there is somebody else waiting to have an impact in your life. But you're never going to get there as long as you're carrying that other person around with you. Love them or hate them. Happy they're gone or sad they're gone. Either way, unless it's the person sitting in front of you or behind you or next to you. They're not here with you now, right? Maybe these are nice people around you. Maybe these people would treat you with kindness and respect and appreciation. Maybe they wouldn't make you feel like crap all day long. Maybe you should try meeting some of them. Actually, try it. Turn around and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And this way. Forward. That's just for fun.
Oh.
And if I would skip Chuck, I'd go to gym next week. He's moving away soon, so I gotta take my last jab. But back to kind of being serious. You understand? You're not gonna, I mean, they had an impact in your life. We've all had people in our lives that have impacts. And that's beautiful. But think about what you're missing out on, not so much on what you've lost or can't move past. The whole life waiting for you. Live it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying by just setting it down and letting it go. That has something that happened to me in my past that literally has made it hard for me to open up to people. Like I'm just really transparent. My father molested me as a younger person, and I actually not too long ago as well. And it's just been an ongoing thing in my life where I just have, when it comes to authority men figure, I have a problem with it because I don't ever feel safe, or I feel like it's never coming from a genuine place of love. It's coming from like you want something from me, I have to give something to you in order for you to like me, or in order for me to like have some type of cool relationship with you. Like, not necessarily not a relationship as in like, you know, but as just relationship. And it's very hard for me to let go of all the stuff he has put me through, like, through my life. Like, it's just now ending because I completely cut off the relationship. But dealing with all of the stuff still and trying to let it go, it's very hard for me to let it just to sit and let it just be. So I don't know what to do.
Understood. No, and I, first and foremost, I appreciate just you coming out and sharing what's on your heart and what's on your mind, and feeling safe enough to do it in this, which is still a relatively. Is this your second time here? Yeah, it's a very new space for you. So I appreciate you sharing that. And anytime you're dealing with, having gone through molestation or anything that is so traumatic like that, whether recent or from a childhood trauma or both, as you said. I want to kind of rephrase what I said a little bit just to clarify. I'm not suggesting that you let that go. You're not ever going to let that go. Ever. Buddhist practice doesn't fix things, right? Let me just say this and I'll come back a little more personal. Buddhist practice doesn't fix things. It doesn't solve things. It doesn't make what's happened go away. It brings you to the present moment, which is, this is where I am. This is who I am. And this is how I am. And I am a person who's had these experiences, and they've created a tremendous amount of trauma, and they have created conditions in me that make me afraid of becoming open and vulnerable. They've created positions where I don't trust, right? All of those things, that is what you're living with right now. And that's where you're at. And that's okay. The challenge is when you start to have a negative view of yourself because of those things. Does that ever happen? Gosh, I didn't want to speak for you in such a heavy matter, but very often in these situations, which I've been working in populations like that for 24 years, truly. 24 years ago, I started working in group homes, helping adolescent teens who've been physically, sexually, emotionally abused. And what I've learned through Buddhist practice is it doesn't heal it or fix it. It makes you look at it very honestly, and it makes you learn first and foremost to have an open heart towards yourself. That it's not your fault. You are not to blame. Right? That you can have love and compassion for yourself first. And to not think that you're a terrible person because these things have happened. You're a person who's experienced a tremendous amount of trauma. And you can still live a very wonderful, beautiful life. Because here you are. You're facing it, you're addressing it, you're honest about it. That's the first step. But if you jump immediately to thinking, that's why I just want to clarify from what I said, you're not letting that go anytime soon, if ever. That has happened. And that will shape who you are. And that does shape who you are today. And that can become a really beautiful thing. Because as you learn to continue to be open and honest and heal yourself inside and work on having an open heart towards others, all the people in this world that suffer from things that people who've gone through things just like you. You're sitting here working on it. And so I honor you for that kind of courage and bravery. And think of all the people out there. I know you're not here right now to go help them, but it's really a matter of not letting go, but shifting the way we see the experiences that we have gone through, and working on not letting them destroy us, but to build us up and make us stronger. Is that, it doesn't answer anything, and there wasn't a question, but does that at least help you see it from maybe a different lens and perspective?
It does. I mean, of course, I don't want somebody to just take it away, but maybe nobody forget about it. Just like,
Right.
But it's something I just I have to learn how to accept and just try to not let it become me.
Yes.
And move on from it. And make sure that I don't let it happen again.
Yes.
I don't become that person.
And that I think is the key of what you just said, is that, even with the smile on your face of, I wish someone could just take that away. And that's to me where Buddhism is so beautiful, but also sometimes is kind of just like, really? You can't just fix it for me? Like, where is the page in the book that makes everything better? There isn't one of those. The Buddhist path and waking up to the true nature of reality is seeing things how they are. And as you said, learning to accept and embrace that. This is what has happened, right? And most people in this room, in their own way, have gone through different levels of trauma. And it's a constant, it's a daily practice. Have the kindness and love for yourself every single day. Nobody deserves to go through something like that. People who do things like that only come from a place of tremendous pain and suffering and anger and hatred and delusion and ignorance. They are being tortured mentally, emotionally, potentially having been physically abused as themselves as well. And so that, at some point in time, is kind of a next level to this practice, to understand that the only reason people do things like that is because of the pain and delusion and ignorance and anger and hatred that they carry. It's not about you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing again. Yes.
For me, traumas or difficulties are real, they attract stories.
Mm.
And the more stories there are, the more unrealistic things are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And my job for me is to start stripping away the stories and get down to, this is what happened, this is the fact. And
Right.
that's all there is to it. It's not this fault, that story, it's just, there it is. And then that's where that moment of, being in the present happens.
Yes. Yeah, and being in removing some of the stories and the emotional hangups and attachments we have to things like this, which is not easy to do, and coming to the present moment of, this is how this is impacting me right now, and then making choices going forward based on our present, present experience is the removing of the stories is helpful, but extremely difficult. Yeah. Other questions, meditation, this practice, anything you're sitting with?
I have a question about what the Buddha might have said about judging others. I've noticed, I'm coming from a time in my life in undergrad where I was around people with different backgrounds a lot more often, and I was around people that had different majors than me and different just dreams and goals. And now I'm in a program where I'm around people that have all the same dreams and goals than me and want to do exactly what I want to do. And I'm noticing that it's a little easier for me to be judgmental towards people that I didn't pick or aren't on the same path that I am, because
Right.
I'm only around people that are on the same path as I am.
Right.
And I know the Buddha initially had to make a decision to take his own path, and you've made your decision to become a practitioner for
Yeah.
however many years. I was wondering, how do you handle that judgment,
Yeah.
that initial thought that comes when you
Yeah.
hear others?
So the question for those who didn't hear it is just, going from an undergraduate situation where you're around many different views, and then now in a graduate program where it kind of narrows down, you're around more people that have a similar view to you. You all kind of have the same aspirations and goals in that graduate program. So where does kind of the Buddhist teachings around going beyond judgment settle in? And, to tie it, one of my favorite expressions, I call it Buddhist arrogance, right? And I often joke, but I mean it very seriously, that sometimes Buddhists can be the most judgmental and most critical. Look at me, I'm Buddhist. Check me out. I go to this Buddhist thing twice a week. What do you do? Like, it's so common in Buddhist circles, constantly. Buddhist circles are filled with human beings who are, greedy, angry, ignorant, and dealing with their own egos and pride and self. And as soon as we begin to do this Buddhist thing, then it becomes very common to think, I remember when I first started going to the temple, those first couple years, and I couldn't hang out with the guys that I used to hang out with. And maybe you've heard me say this, but that first year or two, I had a lot of judgment towards them, of everything they were doing. This is going back to 2003, 2004, 2005, right? When the reality is they were doing the same thing that I was doing like yesterday. But now that I had moved on from it, I'm like, I can't believe you guys are so dumb doing all that stupid stuff. When the day before I moved to the monastery, I was doing this stupid stuff with them, right? But now I'm sitting there judging them. And so it's also, I think, important to understand that the Buddha himself, I think there's choices we make on how we live our lives that are different from judgment. So the Buddha was a prince, as you know, and he chose to leave that life. He chose to live a renunciate path as, the celibate monk working towards enlightenment. But in what you get from his teachings was not a judgment back on, oh, you fools in the palace, right? He just chose he chose this path versus that path. But it didn't mean that he thought their path was wrong. Now, that's hard to do when we're a bunch of unenlightened folks roaming around, because we think, well, I'm on a good path now. Why are you being such an idiot? We've all done things and made choices and decisions that harm self and harm others. And so when we find ourselves in a potentially good place, whether it's through school or work or spiritual practice, it's important to kind of check ourselves and say, well, am I judging them because they're not doing what I'm doing? Right? And understand that whatever place we think we're at and whatever place we're using to compare that to where they are, like, okay, if I think I'm at this place, but I think they're at this place, if I see myself judging them for that, I need to check myself and say, no, they're right where they need to be, and I'm right where I need to be. But not compare the two places, you're all here on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, the chances are when you're done, you're going to walk out. And again, I hate to put words in people's mouths, but you might feel kind of good about yourself for going to your meditation and Buddhist thing on a Tuesday evening, right? Is anyone going to walk out of here and think like, oh, I'm such an idiot for going there? No, you might. It gives you a little kind of that pat on the back, like I did my spiritual thing, right? There's ego involved in that. And Tom Jeff talked about this, that, the ego isn't going away, but begin to recognize the healthy part of ego and the unhealthy, the wholesome and the unwholesome part of ego. But when you cross that street and you see somebody else getting in the car that wasn't in this room, don't think, well, I'm better than you because I just came for meditation, right? Again, I'm sure none of you would do that, but just in case. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, you were gonna, yeah.
So for a few years I worked as a federal correctional officer, and unfortunately a big percentage of our population were sex offenders.
Yes.
And having conversations with them, it was all about power. And the biggest control that they had over people was, people that they did these things to was not making them keep quiet. And I just want to say you're pretty badass because you're here, you're talking about it, and you're taking that power.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Yeah, and to continue to find places, communities where you feel comfortable, exploring the traumas and struggles and challenges we've had is key. Because not a lot of environments are really conducive to that. Thanks. Other thoughts, questions? Did that help at all address the judgment thing? Yeah. Yeah. You still thinking about him, or have you moved on? All right. Just making sure. I saw you lost in thought, so I wanted to. Yeah. Yes.
I have a similar situation where I have someone who's been causing me pain and they're gonna move out. But I kind of have this constant feeling of dread and I don't really know how to let it go and I have to go home to that because they haven't moved out yet.
Yeah. So I'll kind of close with this thought as we're hitting 8 o'clock here. What I hear on different levels, none more or less important than others, but different degrees of difficult situations. Some things are just going to suck, right? I respond to you this way. The question, in the way you said it, I would never respond to you that way, right? Or this way. And I don't know anything about the situation, but the first thing the Buddha taught, right, when he awakened, it wasn't like, hey, everybody, life's going to be phenomenal. Woohoo, big party. No. The first thing he said in the Four Noble Truths is life is filled with dukkha, with suffering, with discomfort, with angst, dissatisfaction. Life is filled with that. But yet, day in and day out, you and everybody, many people who come to kind of Buddhist things are very quickly looking for, how do I remove the difficult situation? My suggestion is your situation kind of sucks right now, right? Be with that. Go home and recognize, what's your name?
Julian?
Julian? So Julian goes home. It's like, okay, this person's here. I don't know. I don't want them here. I want them here, whatever. This sucks. How does that make me feel? I feel angry right now. Okay. What is this like? Sit with that. I don't like what's happening. Sit with that. I mean, assuming it's safe and all that. Sit with that. This isn't going to take that away or solve that or fix that or make it any better. You're in a bad situation, right? Be with that bad situation. And in that bad situation, do what you can to not make it worse. My guess is you're on a very, kind of thin ice or thin line where the situation you're in could very quickly escalate and become really bad, right? Don't do that. But if you feel terrible about it, you go into it and you're all angry and pissed off and not happy with it, you're not going to come from a place of compassion and love and kindness. You're going to come from a place of anger and hatred and rage or whatever those emotions might be. And when you act on those, the other person's probably not going to give you a hug. Right? So work on your action, your karma in that moment that is extremely painful. Does that make sense? Yeah. No answer I give you, no book, no sutra, no teaching is going to solve this for you. Although what helps is the teaching of impermanence. That situation is impermanent. Everything that's happened to us, however much we carry it or not, has happened, and we choose, sometimes either easier than others, how to be with it in each moment. But that emotion that we feel will change. You'll probably get through the situation you're in right now, right? And 5 years from now, is it really going to matter? No. But if you're not careful, it could ruin the next 6 months of your life. You know? Does that help? Yeah. Will you keep an eye on him during this situation? Thanks. It's not her, is it? Because I'm very brave of you to bring that here. Take a chance based on the way she was smiling at you that it wasn't. Yeah. So with that, we'll close. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Marilyn and Max in their time of suffering. May they all be at peace. May we all be at peace and free from suffering.